Well, I'm curious for you, what are you seeing in terms of AI? Is it making us obsolete? What should founders know about AI? Let's crack this one open.
I want to present an analogy, a metaphor. The way I look at AI, I think everybody's looking at it wrong. I think everybody's looking at AI the wrong way. AI, they keep talking about what AI is going to take over. Okay, so if you're a copywriter right now, AI is the worst thing that's ever happened to you, right? It's the apocalypse. AI can now write copy. That was your thing. Now AI can do it. I think the way people are looking at it the wrong way is the way I would say back in the day. Ed, if you and I were carpenters and we were working on a job site with hand tools, and some jerk shows up with a powered circular saw, and it's like, hey, dude, I could do what you're doing in like 5 seconds. And we're like, oh no, tools are taking over, right? Here's what ended up happening. It's not that we lost our jobs because we didn't have to use the handsaw anymore. It's that we could now use this tool, which of course is AI in this case. We could use this tool to build houses faster. And when we started building houses faster, they became cheaper. When they became cheaper, more people could afford them. When more people could afford them, the home building industry got 1,000x bigger. We keep thinking of ourselves, that copywriter, as the hand tool. And oh my God, they've replaced the hand tool with an actual power tool being AI. My point is, hey, writer person, has it occurred to you that you can now write 100x more than what you could have yesterday? What can you do now that you can write 100x more than you could yesterday? Use the damn tool, right? Instead of thinking how it replaces you. I've got another friend who is an illustrator, and she hates all the generative AI stuff, right? She's like, this is all bullshit. It's not organic. It's, whatever. And I'm saying the stuff that you and I used to create together, a lot of the illustrations for Startups.com would take us days. I can now do the same thing in about 9 seconds. What if we created more illustrations than we could have created before? Right?
Exactly. Yep.
What if an illustration taking us 2 damn days was the biggest waste of our time of all time? And your ability to manipulate an artistry pad was not a fairly useful skill. Your ability to get concepts into the world was the skill. Now you got a power tool to do it.
And people's minds are going to go in one of two directions. They're either going to go into cyberpunk dystopia, where there's the haves and the have-nots, or you're going to go into Star Trek, where it's like, all right, everything's abundant, and we don't have to work no more. Everything is solved, and now we can do other things. But, Will, I think that a lot of people are complaining, and I'm just going to call it out. And founders fall into this trap too, because they're just lazy. They don't want to do more. It's like, no, I was really cushy doing my one illustration a week, and now you're asking me to actually increase my output. And I think that if you look at the divide, what's happening is there are now people who just produce. So there were blue-collar workers. And the reality is being able to write something or draw something is not special anymore. And I'm a trained artist. I went to art school. Like, I literally spent 6 years of my life in art school, and I'm using AI tools all the time. There's a difference between someone who just produces and the creator. And I tell you, these tools now, I can create. AI can't create. Now I can create, and I use the AI tools just to make me hyper productive, make me more efficient, and allow me to explore creativity that much more. And I think founders need to see this in the industry and take advantage of it.
Yeah, I think it's like anything else. Whenever we see a sea change of technical revolution, like an industrial revolution, where people are like, oh my God, this machine can do what I could do. The whole world is going to end and no one will ever be employed. What we always miss on those trajectories is the explosive effect of what that new thing produces. I'll give you an example. Because I was around in the 90s, the start of the internet, I was the guy running around saying the internet's coming. Like, that was my shtick in the early 90s, going to like all Fortune 500 companies. Our clients were like BMW and Best Buy. And I was this like kid that still had pimples, pitching the fact that this new thing called the internet's going to come, and commerce is going to move online, and people are going to share information online, blah, blah, blah. No one believed me, by the way. Like, absolutely no one believed anything I had to say, right? To give you an idea of where the world was at the time, I dropped out of college in 1993. It was 1993. And I was so excited, Ed. I ran to my guidance counselor, and I was a theater major, so it wasn't like a very technical background. But I ran to my guidance counselor, and I was like, you're not going to believe this. I'm dropping out today. And she's like, oh my God, like, is everything okay? And I biggest smile on my face. I'm like, the internet's coming, and I'm going to start an internet company, and we're going to build web pages, and it's going to be the biggest thing ever. And she's looking at me, just stone-faced, like, okay. And finally, she has one question. She's like, what's the internet, right? Like, and there was a time, right? My point is, at the time, when everybody saw this coming, everybody was like, oh my God, if you ruin Blockbuster because Netflix happens, then you've ruined the entire movie industry, right? If you ruin Barnes & Noble because Amazon comes, you've ruined the book industry. And what ended up happening in every case? We 10x'd, 100x'd those industries. We didn't ruin them. We exponentially made them bigger. Right now, when I go onto Netflix, I have a certain amount of movies. The reason I have this number of movies is it takes a lot of time to do a lot of stuff to make those movies. Once you start geometrically halving production times, story times, actors, right? I could have 100x selections on Netflix because we've cut down the amount of time it takes to make these things. I can go
We
on
are
forever.
we are not getting obsolete. Founders won't be obsolete. And this is what I love, Will. Our founders are going to be looking at those new opportunities and reducing friction using AI. What AI tools do you use on a regular basis? I'm going to pop the hood here and let everybody in on some trade secrets, but I'm curious, what AI are you using these days, Will?
I'm all over the map. So, I'm using all the tried and true ones like GPT and Gemini and stuff like that. The way I'm using it is more important than the tool itself because there's a million tools and they all purport to do a thing. The way I'm using it is I'm trying to extend what I don't know how to do, right? I'm not saying write my copy for me, right? Like that feels pedestrian compared to what it can do. I'm saying write code for me. Hey, here's an operation that I always use on my computer. Write me a batch file. I'm a Windows guy. Write me a batch file that will automate that in the future. I don't know how to write a batch file. I barely know what one is. And now I'm sitting there with the AI and it's like, well, could you also do this? Could you also do this? I'm writing code and I don't know how to write code, but I know how to make it work. I'm using it like I'm in the process of building a house. I used it in so many ways. Let me give you an example because I love when people hear this. I created a list of every single appliance or thing that I needed to purchase for this house. It's a new build. I dropped it into a Google Doc and I told GPT, run through this entire list, find the lowest price of every product that I'm ever going to buy, and tell me what the power draw is on it, and design me an electrical plan for my entire house based on that. 80% accuracy. Also, took about 60 seconds. I showed it to my electrician. I showed it to my architect. Their heads exploded. The guy was like, that would have taken me a week. I was like, that's sort of my point. Right? I love this stuff.
I had experience this morning. Normally, and I told Jen this, I would have called her and said, I need an HVAC guy, right? I just would have done that, but I literally asked ChatGPT, I said, here's what's going on with my furnace.
Yep.
And an hour later, I had fixed it. And I felt like a hero. My wife thinks I'm a hero. It's really great. But let me translate what Will just said to all you founders out there. And Will, let me ask you, would you agree that you are actually thinking consciously and exploring how AI can help you literally in everything that you do during the day? True or false?
100%. Ed, we're creating this video right now, okay? Behind me, you can't see because there's a door in front of it, is a Stable Diffusion generative AI server running to see if I can create an episode that we do without us actually in it. What if, right? What if what we do, like what we present, doesn't entirely require us, right? What if the piece of advice I need to give could be tailored to each person that needs it coming from me and can be presented on demand when people need it, almost like a chatbot, right? It's nerdy stuff that I'm doing.
In multiple languages, different contexts.
Oh, you saw that. You saw I was outputting myself in Korean.
Exactly, yeah.
Yeah. It was amazing.
I ran it by my wife and she was like, that actually sounds like Korean.
It's amazing, right? Think of how many people I can't help because I just don't speak their language. Now we take all the knowledge that we have and everything that we've written and everything that we know, we synthesize it and we make it available through a chat. We make it available through an avatar. And when somebody says to us, how do I create my problem statement on my pitch deck? We walk them through it at 2 a.m. in another country while we're sleeping.
And for founders, all of you who are watching this right now with us, and we're going to be watching this, you literally should be treating AI, at least like a ChatGPT, like a co-founder sitting beside you or the smartest intern in the world and running things through. So I'm just going to say straight out, like before, I ask this all the time, and before you send us your pitch decks, I asked this of founders, I said, did you run this through ChatGPT? And I'm not trying to corner the market, Will. Like, I don't need to be massaging another pitch deck problem statement. I want founders to use this tool. Make me obsolete, please. Yep. Make it so that, oh, you know what? And I didn't need your advice because ChatGPT walked me through on how to do a problem statement. Do it because we are going to move on to better things and be a lot more productive for you.
Again, I keep going back to this power tool analogy, which is I don't want to be the tool. I don't want to be the thing that types letters, right? Like I don't want to be the circular saw, right? I want to be the person that operates that tool. In this case, GPT. Right? To make it do exponentially more than I'd ever been able to do by myself. So part of, if you think about the future of our business and guiding people, so many new things are about to happen. Like this is one of the most seminal moments in human history for how much is about to change. And we get to guide people through it. Ed, you and I got a front row seat back in the 90s when this happened last time, right? Everything changed. And we got to be part of that architecture in building that. It was amazing.
Yeah, we are old. Thank you for reminding me.
Yeah, there's that.
Like, oh my gosh, there's the internet. We can get information on the internet. And then it was oh my gosh, we can get stuff on our phones and wireless. And then it's like, oh my gosh, like there's social media, etc. But Will, one last thing I want to talk about. And this is how, and I got a great question here in the chat about AI and fundraising. Let's touch on this in a moment. But Will, we have never seen a moment in time where literally it's now possible. Like I saw someone say, you could literally have a 3-person company become a unicorn, $1 billion. You
Yep.
need a CEO. You need someone who's got vision, all this stuff, right? You need someone who's going to do operations and just make sure everything goes. And then you need someone like a chief AI or someone who knows how to use these tools.
Right.
And literally, where before, if you want to build a unicorn, you're at least like 300 to 3,000 staff.
Right.
And now they're saying 3 people can build a unicorn startup. Well, true, false? What do you think?
I'm seeing it. Now, I think people are overselling what AI can actually do, right? If AI was your intern, they would be a genius one moment and the dumbest person you've ever met the next, right? Like you would make one request and they'd give you the most beautiful answer. You'd make another one and they'd have a drool coming out of their mouth, right?
Yeah, you're on
AI
drugs. You're drugs.
so
on drugs.
freakishly unpredictable and imperfect right now. When it works, it seems like a miracle. But if I'm being honest, the reason I'm in so many hours of ChatGPT, I'm correcting it.
Yeah.
Right? Like it rarely gives me what I want the first time. And I can easily get caught in a trap where I keep trying to teach it to do what it's supposed to do. And it's one of those things where like, I could have just done it by now. Right. And so my point is, I think we're at an inflection point where if you're a gaming nerd like I am, we're at the Atari 2600 of AI, right? Like where it's so amazing. Everyone's blown away by Pac-Man and Space Invaders. They don't understand that like they're playing with like a monochromatic joystick and like what's going to happen in the future is exponentially more. And I think we're so wowed by what we're going to look back on as this hilariously bad iteration of this technology, and it'll change.
Get on the wave now. That's what founders do. We adapt, we adopt this technology. Well, here's the question. How would you use AI in fundraising? Let's take you back to days when you're raising, knowing what you've gone through, knowing the industry. How are you using AI tools right now to raise money?
Well, we are. That's actually, it's something I've been working hand in hand on. Here's a couple areas where I think fundraising, particularly finding investors, right? Finding the right investors. What's really difficult is most people that are going to do like any kind of investor search, you're on Crunchbase or something and you're trying to go through, you're going to do industry, location, deal size, something like that. And you're going to get people who at a binary level probably fit in that category. What's interesting to me is that most of the investors that I actually took on would have never fallen into any of my criteria, right? Like technically they were kind of maybe in this stage or maybe in this industry, but the way I would have found them is what I'd consider to be more of a fuzzy logic search. It was like, oh, they went to this school, they knew about this technology, or they knew about this industry. That's why they were interested in my deal. And I would have never found that in a million years in a traditional database search. What AI does incredibly well is it makes some of those connections through narrative text, multiple sources comparison that would be impossible to do in a static database.
Scraping, sorting, analyzing. So, for example, and these are the limitations right now. And because of privacy and people have kind of got these walled gardens, I can't send an AI to scrub all my LinkedIn connections. It just won't happen. The two won't come together. Right. LinkedIn, Microsoft's not going to allow that to occur because they want to monetize themselves. What I can do is cut and paste everything, like literally a month's worth of posts and my contacts and profiles and send it to ChatGPT. And I've done that before. Right. I put in a PDF. I say, analyze it. I've used in tandem, and this is something everybody can learn. I don't use just one tool. Will, you're the same way. So I will search for investors using ChatGPT, Perplexity, right? Mm-hmm. And then combine the two together because they all function a little different. And I think that's going to be the key in fundraising is one tool, even though that one tool is going to promise that they can handle it, it's the silver bullet. It's just not going to happen. So learn to use different tools, build your own workflow. And then you can start to, for example, hey, let's scan the website. Hey, ChatGPT, go to this investor's website, find out these deals. I'm going to cut and paste the LinkedIn profile and then tell me how I should be approaching them or tell me what their investment thesis is, what they say it is versus what it really is. So many ways for you to do research now than ever before.
There's another aspect that I just want to touch on, Ed. There's one thing that's really, really, really hard for founders to parse right now when they're trying to do investor research. It's what are these investors talking about online because all the good ones are online. And did they say something recently that I could respond to and find an opening? See, that's context, right? That's context of connection. And that's one of the things that I just happened to do very organically back in the days when you talk to people at networking events and things like that. Like I found myself having incidental conversations with people I would have never met or never even thought to search for. And they wound up becoming an investor. And so what I would love to be able to do with my AI agent is say, here's the sentiment I'm looking for, right? I've got a new smart lighting app and I want you to tell me investors that are talking about the smart lighting space online right now. And when they do, I want you to fire this reply in or this message, right? I think the agent technology is going to give me a lot of if-then opportunities to start to figure out exactly where and when to dial in with some of these investors.
Here's another use case for everyone out there. I get feedback. I just say, hey, what's the sentiment? You talked about sentiment. What's the sentiment in this space? Where are people angry? What's not happening right now? What are the opportunities that I'm missing? And then I'll load up my pitch. I will upload my pitch deck. I'll say, this is what my pitch is going to be. What am I missing? What will the general consensus be? How will people respond? And I will get feedback, or I'll even ask, what are some things that investors are going to ask me or they want to see that I'm not thinking about? And it'll look through the entire internet of best practices, anecdotes, all the stories of what's made you successful or other founders successful. And it'll coach you. It will literally tell you what you could be doing next. And you can tell it, I want you to be hard on me, be gentle, be kind. I'm new to this. Like, there's so many possibilities. Talk to me like I'm in 5th grade. So many
I use that all the time.
Yeah, exactly.
I do, actually. What I think is interesting, though, because part of what we're doing is we're trying to make these introductions to people. We're trying to get connected to people. And I think the traditional channels of let me storm the inbox are becoming less and less permeable, right? And in my mind, I need to find ways to make that chance connection, right? And again, I was saying this earlier, all the most important people in my life, important like relative to what I was doing at the time, I met by total happenstance. I'll give you one example just because it's hilarious. I'm in the elevator of my apartment building in Los Angeles, right? And there's this nerdy guy standing next to me. And he's wearing, this is geez, I got to timestamp it, 2006 maybe, my date might be off, but it's roughly then. And there's this nerdy guy standing next to me, and he's wearing a Hulk hat, like Hulk, like from Marvel, right? Like a screen printed Hulk hat. And I'm like, what grown, like, it didn't look like a grown man that should be wearing that hat. And I never talk to people on elevators. I'm glad they don't talk to me, but I was dying to know, right? And I'm a huge comic book nut. And I turned to him, I'm like, hey man, Hulk hat, right? And he's like, oh yeah, I'm producing the movie, right? And I'm like, okay, go on, right? Turns out he was the guy that they just brought in to be the chairman of Marvel. Okay, this is back then. A guy named David Mizell. He was a stockbroker or investment banker or something like that. And he tells me this amazing story about how Marvel got bought out for next to nothing. I'm not going to bore you with all this, but in how he had just been given $500 million to produce a bunch of new movies, right? And he told me we're going to do Iron Man, we're going to do Thor, we're going to do Hulk. And I was like, you're going to do Thor? Like, again, I'm a comic book nerd. Also, my son's name is Thor. I was like, that seems like a hard one to do. He's like, yeah, we found this guy from Australia. He's like a heartthrob out there. And I was like, this doesn't sound like it's going to go very well. But anyway, my point is, I would have never met that guy in a million years. And I think these chance encounters, of how you run into people are fascinating to me. And I'd like to find more ways, again, I'm going back to Jeff's question about investors, more ways to make those connections to founders, to investors, et cetera. I think there's a way to do that with AI that's never existed before.
Take advantage of those tools, everyone. We could talk about this. This is another topic. Well, I'm sure we talk all day about all the use cases for AI. Yeah. Fact of the matter is, the point is, everyone jump on the train and start using it.